Welcome to the Farming Without the Bank podcast, the show with a no BS approach to money, hosted by a farm strategy expert and authorized IBC practitioner. Join us as we get real and expose the flaws of traditional financial institutions in order to help farmers take control of their finances, create peace of mind, grow their wealth, and leave a legacy. Now, here's your host, Mary Jo Ehrman.
Hello, and welcome back to the Farming Without the Bank podcast. Thank you very much for being here. I sure do appreciate y'all. You know, I'm not even from the South, and I have noticed I've been saying y'all more lately. It's easier than you guys. It is easy. Easy. As always, if you would love to stop in and give this podcast a review, 5 stars are always appreciated, or share it. If you share it, that is even more appreciated. I have found that there are obviously lots and lots of podcasts out there, but there are very few good podcasts out there. It is tough, my friends. It is hard for me. I love podcasts, and it is so hard for me to listen to podcasts that are not edited correctly, podcasts that, you can't hear people because they have a terrible recording system or whatever it is, or they just don't give content. Oh my gosh, I'm listening to learn. I'm not listening to the news just for people to blabber. And so please give content. If I am doing that, I would love for you to share this and give a review. And if I'm not, tell me. Email me and say, Mary Jo, you are not providing content. I need X, Y, and Z. Okay, fantastic. Let me know, because I do not want to waste people's time. I hate when people waste my time. All right, today we are going to talk about how to compete with large farmers. I have a new client who said, Mary Jo, you've talked about it a little bit on your podcast, but how do the small guys compete with the big guys? And I think that that's a really good question. I don't know that I have an exact answer. I do know that I have some thoughts, and I have some things to share that were our experiences with the clients that I work with. Because at the end of the day, I am working with clients that are farming 25,000 acres to clients that are farming, an acre. And it all depends on where you live to what that means. And let me just preface this with the fact that when I first started working with farmers, I just thought everybody was a big farmer. I mean, I grew up in an environment where you farm, 1,000+ acres. Like anything smaller than that is a hobby farm. We are in North Dakota. We have no trees. We have no hills. And okay, so we have a couple trees. My husband gets mad at me when I say we don't have any trees, but he doesn't really leave town often, so he's never been to the South, really, to see the quantity of trees and hills and mountains, and it's insane. We went to Oregon a couple years ago, and I was flabbergasted to see people are farming the sides of hills. Like, how do you do that without tipping a tractor? Like, completely eye-opening to us, because we don't need to farm the sides of hills because we maybe don't have any hills in most of North Dakota. We don't have any hills, and there's enough flat ground. You don't need to farm the hill. There's no trees. And so it really was eye-opening to me the first time and I will never forget the first time I talked to somebody in the South, and they had, 100 or 300 acres. And I thought, you're not even a farmer. But they are. And I come to learn, because I ask questions, I've come to learn that they for sure are a big operation in the South because of the fact that there's not as much land. So when we look at what is a big farmer, that is all relative compared to where you're at, right? And in our industry, we talk about that a lot. Compared to what? So you want to compete with big farmers. What does that mean? Does that mean hundreds of acres? Does that mean thousands of acres? Does that mean that you want to do thousands of acres in Iowa at 15,000 an acre? Or do you want to do thousands of acres in, North Dakota, Western North Dakota, where we're at maybe 1,500 an acre? I talked to somebody the other day and their pasture ground they're at like $800 an acre, which is the lowest I've ever heard in, 11 years of working with farmers. So the question has to be posed first, compared to what? Now, if you are a young person starting out and we want to compete with the big boys at 5,000 to 6,000 acres or even 3,000 acres, and you're starting with 100, there's nothing wrong with that. I think that we have to remember the people we're competing with didn't have 3,000 acres. They didn't have 5,000 acres overnight. They got there slowly. And so many of us want everything right now. And what's happening in most areas is that the bigger farmers are coming in and they are saying, well, I'll just, I've got collateral in other land, I'll use that. Or the bank will give them more money so they get more rented ground. I don't think that you should so easily give up, because I have talked to many, many young people getting into this industry who the big farmer will give them an opportunity to help them out, right? So if you need to go work for somebody, or you need you have, some equipment that you need to put to use, one of the neighbors, if you develop a relationship, one of those neighbors will say, hey, you know what? I need you to help me out. Well, now we're developing a relationship, and they may eventually allow you to lease some ground. There are people I've talked to who have neighbors that don't like the other neighbors, right? When somebody gets too big, one of the neighbors doesn't like them. So they will go out of their way to make sure that the big guy doesn't get any more land to farm. And so who gets that opportunity? The smaller guy. There are neighbors out there that are watching to see how you farm. They're watching to see how you work. They're watching to make sure that your homestead is clean. These are the neighbors that are going to say, hey, I would like for you to rent my ground. We just aren't going to be able to have everything in large quantity overnight. And it really doesn't matter what it's compared to. If we're in the South and 300 acres is a lot, then it doesn't matter if you're starting with 10 or if you're starting with 100. It's all relative, right? The other thing that we need to really think about is building those relationships. Like this particular client, I said, well, the big guys are happy to share information. Don't think that they won't. Build that relationship. Just because they got land doesn't mean that they want to necessarily farm it all. Maybe they want to help a young guy. Ask them, how did you do this to get where you're at? Do you have any advice for me? They may have advice. In this particular circumstance, as soon as I said that, he goes, oh, you know what? I sell XYZ to them, and we do have a really good relationship. They come to me for all their needs on whatever the product is that he's selling. So they come to him for advice. They already trust him. They already like him. They already know him. Do you think that they're going, and when he says, hey, do you have advice for me on how to expand? Do you think that they're going to give him advice? Absolutely they will. Just because they're big farmers doesn't mean that they're jerks. It just means we need to ask people for advice. It's funny when I have a business, somebody young that's just starting a business and they're like, "Oh, Mary Jo, I don't want to take too much of your time." Inevitably, I will start giving business advice. Things that I did wrong that I do not want other people to repeat. That cost me money. I don't want business owners to have to go through that. But nobody shared that with me. I had to pay the price, right? I've had to pay for coaching. I've kind of feel like sometimes I'm on this island all on my own. I've had some people around me that have shared information, which is absolutely awesome. But when I first started and I was all on my own, I didn't know business owners. I didn't get a lot of advice from them. No, I had past bosses who were absolutely amazing at helping and answering questions about real estate and all that kind of stuff. But I didn't have anybody to just ask those questions of. I am more than happy when people start asking me questions and want business advice. I will give you as much time as I possibly can for free because I absolutely love helping people in that arena. If you are willing to work, I am willing to give you the time. If you are lazy and I am giving you information and you don't apply it, I'm done. I'm done. I'm not putting any more time and energy into it. And that is how every successful person is. I don't care if you're a farmer or not. If you are willing to learn, build a relationship, and prove yourself, and do what if you're asking people for advice and you take none of it, don't expect them to keep giving it. But don't expect that they're just going to brush you off. If you're going around bad-mouthing your neighbor and then you go ask them for advice, well, yeah, you probably shouldn't expect the best response, right? But if you show up and work and build a relationship, you can't necessarily compete on the financial level because you don't have the finances. Who on God's green earth has $15,000 an acre to buy ground? Not even the farmer in Iowa can pay for the $15,000 an acre. There is not a crop unless you're selling hemp or something. And I don't even know what the price of hemp is right now. But there is not a crop that will pay for that. We're using other land to do that. Or we're financing multiple generations to get that land. But land is worth what people will pay for it. A car is worth what people will pay for it. If you're in those areas financially, how are you ever going to get there? You're going to have a really good off-the-farm job and have some sort of investments to get there. I talk about my brother with clients a lot. He worked off the farm for many, many years. I want to say he worked off the farm for like 12 years or something like that, 12 to 15 years, nights. And then he'd come home and farm during the day. And my sister-in-law works off the farm. That's how they managed to get the land that they've gotten. He's worked his tail off. Nothing got given to him. He doesn't have crap from my parents. He has nothing from them. He's had to do it on his own. So when people say, well, I can't do it, well, you maybe can't do it by just farming. You are going to have an off-the-farm job. You're going to have to do it slowly. You're going to want to ask those neighbors, how did you do it? What advice do you have for me? You're going to want to build those relationships. On the other side of things, I really enjoy listening to Gabe Brown. Gabe is in the regenerative agriculture world. If you don't know who he is, you can go on YouTube and find him. But he had a comment that said, I don't care how many bushels per acre I get. I care what my profit is. And Gabe is in the business of farming. And I talk about this all the time. You guys need to be in the business of farming. It's a business. Treat it like a business. Are you making a profit? And I talk about it in the book. Everybody's got a hole in their boat. It doesn't matter how big the boat is. The holes are relative to the size of the boat. If you have a small operation and you're making a profit, you may be making more profit than the big guy. It's about making a profit and how much profit. It's not about how many acres you have, right? If the big guy is farming 5,000 acres and not making a profit, and you're farming 500 acres and making a profit, now you just want more acres for the sole purpose of feeling like you're a better farmer. That's just a feeling. That's not proof on paper. You guys, I see people every day I'm looking at numbers. Every single day. And I know people out there have said, Mary Jo, you don't know what the hell you're talking about because you don't farm. Well, guess what? I'm seeing the numbers, my friends. And those big farmers are not always making money. If they're running it like a business, they're making money. But with the bigger acreage comes bigger equipment, more land leases, more fertilizer, more chemical, more seed, right? I can see, I have lots and lots and lots of clients that do regenerative agriculture. And I have lots of clients that do traditional farming. I have a great mixture. And I can see that the guy that's doing regenerative is typically smaller. Guess what? His costs are minimal compared to traditional farming. So acres don't matter. I don't care how many acres you have. I want to know what your gross income is. I want to know what your expenses are. And if you don't know those things and you're not running it like a business, I don't care if you have 10,000 acres or if you have 10 acres, you're not going to be profitable. It's the same thing that I tell people. If you can't manage $1, what makes you think $1 million is going to work? I could give somebody $1 million that can't manage $1 and they're going to be broke just as quickly. Pay attention to the numbers, not the acres. With more acres comes bigger headaches. I have talked to this young couple that they could very easily afford 1,000 acres or better. But they're like, we just want to start with 40. Because then we want to start small and just work our way into it. If we have to move again, it's no big deal. But they don't want to get in over their heads. They want to make a profit. It's about a profit. It's not about acres. And a lot of people want more acres so they can farm all day and they don't have to have that off the farm job. I get it. I absolutely 100% get it. But if we pay attention to our numbers, or if we build and if we pay attention to our numbers and we make income to buy more land or to lease more land, great, fantastic, right? We've got more land. We're slowly growing. If we build relationships with the neighbors that when they're ready to give land out and they don't have kids that are taking over, now we have more leased land that way. It's timing. It's patience. It's working really hard to say, you know what, I'm going to find an off-the-farm job that gives me this income. And I'm going to manage my money from the off-the-farm job. Here's another thing that I see a lot. We have an off-the-farm job that is then supporting a farm that is losing money. And so then we can't ever stop working off the farm because we're not managing the finances of the farm. Again, if you can't manage 100 acres, you can't manage 10,000 acres. It's all relative. If your off-the-farm job is supporting the farm, you're never going to get off the farm. And you're never going to grow. If your off-the-farm business is supporting the farm, you're never going to get to shut your business down. You will always be running a business and farming. You are going to be tired. You're going to be exhausted. You're going to be frustrated. You need to know your numbers if you want to grow. If you want to stop the madness of what you're doing today and you want to be able to farm full time, you need to start managing your money today. I see lots of people who have off the farm jobs, and the off the farm income is supporting the farm. Or we have more than one entity within the farm, and one entity is supporting another entity. Ranching may be supporting the farm. The farm may be supporting the ranch. The farm may be supporting the feedlot. The feedlot may be supporting the cattle. The cattle may be supporting the feedlot. You get the point. If you have all these enterprises, just like they talk about in Ranching for Profit, you have different enterprises. Are those enterprises making you money, or are they losing you money? It may seem that I'm seriously off topic here, because I started out with, how do I grow my farm? You can't grow your farm if you don't know your numbers. You can't grow your farm if you don't have possible off the farm income or other income to purchase that land, or if the farm's not making enough money to purchase more land, or not making enough money to lease more land. So in addition to the money, we need to be patient. We need to look and say, that guy is 60 years old and farming more acres than I am. I'm only 25. I can't have everything overnight. Or I'm only 40 and I just started to really look at expanding. And we don't know what's going to come up for sale in the future. So we need to prepare for that and create that pool of money so that when that happens, we have an opportunity. We've got the money to lease the land. We've got the money to buy the land, whatever it is. Some people get better opportunities than others. There's no question about that. But if you aren't given the opportunity, then go find the opportunity. And be patient, my friends. Be patient. My business didn't grow overnight as much as I wanted it to. I wasn't patient. I tried and tried and tried and kept working. And finally, it took off. That's everywhere I look, that's kind of how life goes. Very rarely does somebody in their 20s and 30s get everything handed to them. It's very rare. And if you're in your 20s and 30s today, guess what? The kids that are inheriting land in their 60s and 70s right now are going to be passing it down to their grandkids who are your age. And those grandkids aren't even going to probably know where the farm is. They're not going to know the value of it. They're going to lease it out. They're going to sell it. Opportunities are going to come in your lifetime. You need to start preparing for those today. And if I really look at his question, how do we compete with the large farmers? Because he was thinking, how do we compete to buy land? Do you compete? I mean, you're kind of in the same race. You're starting way behind, but he's going to finish a hell of a lot faster than you are to where you're going to have an opportunity in the future. Are you going to be prepared for that opportunity when you get to the finish line? Or are you going to be sitting there like, well, I just didn't expect it. It just had never happened in 20 years. And compared to what? Are we competing on the number of acres, or are we competing on the income that we're making? I talked to a guy yesterday that was ecstatic. He was over the moon with the fact that he had a steady income because they quit milking. He had struggled his whole life milking and not having money, and he quit and he went and got a job. And he is over the moon happy that he no longer has the financial stress of no money. Does he even want to compete anymore? Nope. So maybe we need to even change our terminology around the word compete. We want to grow, we want to compete, but do we need to compete? Man, I really thought this podcast was going to be like a struggle to do, but I have so much to say. It's really thought process and looking at what you're doing and what are your goals, to make money or to have more acreage, and to have just for somebody to look at a plots map and say, oh, look at so-and-so has X amount of acres and they have this and they have this and they have this and they're farming this, and look at how good they've done to themselves. But boy, oh boy, what's behind the scenes? How many loans do they have? How far upside down are they? We don't know what's going on behind the scenes. Looks good out front, but we don't know what's going on behind the scenes. So stop trying to compete and strategically figure out, how are we going to grow? What are we going to do those things? And be genuine if you're going to build a relationship, for heaven's sakes. Don't all be fake. But how are we going to build those relationships? Because farm ground is going to be sold. It's going to be rented out. There's always going to be opportunity. We just have to decide how we're going to be able to take that opportunity, and are we going to be ready when the time is right? The only person you should be competing with is yourself. What did you do last year compared to what you're doing this year? Is it better? Is it worse? Is it the same? That is the person you should be worried about, not the other person on the other side of the fence. Okay, that's it. I mean, I could probably ramble forever, but remember, I hate rambling. I think I rambled enough already. If you guys have anything that you want me to talk about and you have a subject, let me know. I love it when you say, Mary Jo, I want you to talk about XYZ. Hey, that gives me ideas. Then I know what you guys are wanting and talking about and thinking about and whatever. So email me, maryjo@withoutthebank.com, and I am happy to address those topics. If you have any questions or anything else, you can email me at the same spot. If you have not gotten the book Farming Without the Bank or Becoming Your Own Banker, I would just like to ask, why? If this is not your first podcast, why are you waiting? They are both in audio. You can go to farmingwithoutthebank.com and you can even get it in audio. Y'all are in the tractor right now. It's a good time to be listening. Just saying. If you need anything, you let me know. Otherwise, you have an absolutely fantastic rest of your day. Catch you in the next podcast.
Thanks for listening to the Farming Without the Bank podcast. We hope today's episode has inspired you to take control of your finances in new ways. Don't forget to check out our website, farmingwithoutthebank.com, and engage with us on our Facebook page, Farming Without the Bank. Join us next week as we smash more financial myths and empower you to accomplish your financial goals.